Hey, Force Fiction fans. Welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the Star Wars universe with epic original stories. Today we're exploring a thrilling what-if tale. What if Padmé Amidala, the fierce senator of Naboo, rose to become Empress of the galaxy? Expect intense battles, heart-wrenching choices, and a galaxy on the brink of chaos as Padme navigates love, power, and the shadow of the Sith. If you're ready for a story that reimagines the fate of the Republic, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this galactic adventure. May the Force be with you. The galaxy was a fractured mosaic, its pieces scattered by war and ambition. The Clone Wars had raged for years, leaving scars on worlds and souls alike. Coruscant, the glittering heart of the Republic, pulsed with intrigue, its spires hiding secrets as deep as the voids between stars. In the Senate, whispers of betrayal mingled with the hum of politics, and in the shadows, a darker power stirred. Padmé Amidala, senator of Naboo, stood at the precipice of destiny. She was no stranger to leadership, queen at 14, senator by her 20s, and now, at the heart of a crumbling republic, a voice of reason in a chorus of chaos. But reason, she had begun to see, was a fragile thing against the tide of war. The Jedi, stretched thin across battlefronts, were faltering. The Senate, bloated with corruption, teetered on collapse. And Palpatine, the chancellor she had once trusted, wore his benevolence like a mask, its edges fraying with every emergency power he claimed. This was the galaxy Padme faced as she stood in her private quarters, the city planet's lights casting long shadows across the room. Her hands rested on the balcony railing, her gown rippling in the artificial breeze. Beside her, Anakin Skywalker, her husband, her secret, watched her with eyes that burned like twin suns. "You are troubled," he said, his voice low, carrying the weight of their hidden love. Padme turned to him, her gaze steady but heavy. "The Republic is dying, Anakin. I've fought for it my whole life, but it's rotting from within. Palpatine's power grows unchecked. The Jedi are distracted, and the people, they're losing hope." Anakin stepped closer, his presence a storm barely contained. "Then we stop it. Together. You've always known how to lead, Padme. You could—" "Lead," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "As what?" "A senator with no real power, a queen of a single world. The system is broken, Anakin. Words and votes won't save it anymore." He reached for her hand, his touch warm but urgent. "You could be more. You are more. The galaxy trusts you. They'd follow you." Padme pulled away, her heart racing. She had heard such words before, whispers from allies, senators, even planets weary of war. They called her a beacon, a unifier, but to be more than a senator, to take power, real power, that was a path she had never dared to tread. Yet the idea lingered, a seed planted in the fertile soil of her resolve. The turning point came weeks later during a Senate session that would alter the course of history. Palpatine, his face etched with feigned weariness, proposed yet another extension of his emergency powers. The motion was cloaked in necessity, security, stability, victory over the Separatists, but Padme saw it for what it was, a step toward tyranny. She rose from her pod, her voice cutting through the Senate's murmurs. "Chancellor, this republic was founded on democracy, not the whims of one man. Your powers already strain the limits of our Constitution. I move to oppose this motion and call for a vote to restore the Senate's authority." The chamber erupted. Senators loyal to Palpatine shouted her down, but others, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and a growing coalition, rallied to her side. The vote was close, too close. And when it failed, Padme felt the galaxy shift beneath her. Palpatine's smile was a blade, thin and cold. That night, in a secret meeting with her allies, the truth became undeniable. "He won't stop," Bail said, his voice grim. "Palpatine is consolidating power faster than we can counter. If we don't act, the Republic will become his empire." Mon Mothma leaned forward, her eyes fierce. "Padme, you've seen the support you command. Planets, systems, even some of the Jedi. They look to you. If the Senate cannot act, then perhaps someone must rise above it." The word hung unspoken. Empress. Padme's breath caught. The idea was madness, a betrayal of everything she believed. Yet as she looked at her allies, at the desperation in their eyes, she saw no other path. The Republic was a sinking ship, and Palpatine was drilling holes in its hull. Someone had to act, or all would be lost. Anakin was her anchor, but also her storm. In their hidden moments, he urged her forward, his belief in her absolute. "You're stronger than Palpatine," he said one night, his hands framing her face. "You could save the galaxy, Padme. You could make it right." But his intensity frightened her. Anakin's love was a fire that could warm or consume, and she saw shadows in his eyes. Anger, fear, a hunger for control. She loved him fiercely, but she knew she could not let his passion steer her course. If she was to take this path, it would be her own. The plan took shape in secret. Padme's allies reached out to sympathetic systems, Naboo, Alderaan, Chandrila, and others, building a coalition strong enough to challenge Palpatine's grip. Key Jedi, including Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, were approached cautiously. Obi-Wan, torn between loyalty to the Order and his trust in Padme, agreed to meet. "You propose a coup," he said, his voice steady but wary, in a shadowed chamber beneath the Jedi Temple. "Not a coup," Padme replied. "A restoration. The Republic is dying, Obi-Wan. If we don't act, Palpatine will crown himself Emperor. I would take power only to save what we've built, and then return it to the people." Yoda, his eyes narrowed, studied her. Nobly your intent is, but power, a dangerous path it treads, corrupt it can even the purest heart. Padme met his gaze. "I know the risks, but I also know the cost of inaction. Will you help me?" The Jedi were divided. Some, like Obi-Wan, pledged cautious support, believing Padme's heart was true. Others, like Mace Windu, refused, wary of any move that echoed dictatorship. The schism weakened the Order, but Padme pressed on. The coup was swift and bloodless, at least at first. On the eve of Palpatine's planned declaration of a new galactic order, Padme's forces struck. Loyal clone troopers, swayed by commanders like Cody and Rex, secured key facilities on Coruscant. Senators allied with Padme locked down the Senate, broadcasting her message across the holonet. "People of the galaxy, the Republic stands at a crossroads. Chancellor Palpatine has betrayed our democracy, amassing power to crown himself Emperor. I, Padmé Amidala, with the support of free worlds and the Jedi, declare myself Empress, not to rule but to restore. Together we will end this war and rebuild what has been broken." The galaxy reeled. Some worlds cheered, seeing Padme as a savior. Others, loyal to Palpatine or distrustful of her motives, decried her as a usurper. Palpatine himself vanished, his whereabouts unknown, but his influence lingered like a poison. Padme's first act as Empress was to suspend the Senate's emergency powers and call for a new constitutional convention. She moved quickly to consolidate her rule, appointing trusted allies to key positions. Bail Organa became her chancellor, tasked with overseeing the transition. Mon Mothma led diplomatic efforts to unify wavering systems. And Anakin was her enforcer, her sword in the shadows. But power, as Yoda had warned, was a treacherous thing. The war did not end with Padme's rise. The Separatists, led by Count Dooku and General Grievous, saw her ascension as a chance to press their advantage. Battles raged on, and Padme found herself commanding armies, a role she had never sought. Anakin thrived in the chaos, leading campaigns with a ferocity that bordered on obsession. His victories were swift, but whispers followed, tales of brutality, of Jedi pushed aside, of clones following the orders that Padme had not given. "Anakin, you're scaring me," she said one night, confronting him in their chambers. His armor was still scarred from battle, his eyes distant. "I'm doing what you need," he snapped. "The galaxy won't bow to speeches, Padme. It needs strength. Our strength." She reached for him, but he pulled away. "This isn't about strength," she said. "It's about trust. If we lose that, we lose everything." His gaze softened, but only for a moment. "I'll never let you fall," he vowed. "No matter what it takes." Padme's heart ached. She loved him, but she saw the darkness growing within him, fed by the war and the power they now wielded. She resolved to watch him closely, to keep him from slipping too far. Meanwhile, Palpatine's shadow loomed. Though he had fled Coruscant, his agents worked in secret, sowing discord. Propaganda painted Padme as a tyrant, a Jedi puppet, or worse, a traitor to democracy. On worlds like Raxus, Separatist leaders rallied support, claiming Padme's empire was no different from Palpatine's vision. Then came the betrayal. A faction of Jedi led by Mace Windu declared Padme's rule illegitimate. "The Jedi serve the Force, not an Empress," Windu proclaimed in a rare public statement. "We will not bend to her will." The schism fractured the Order further. Obi-Wan, torn between his friend and his duty, tried to mediate, but the damage was done. Padme, stung by the rejection, leaned harder on Anakin and her loyalists. She issued a decree. Any Jedi who opposed her would be considered a threat to the Republic's restoration. It was a move she regretted even as she signed it, but she saw no choice. The galaxy was unraveling, and she could not afford division. By the end of her first year as Empress, Padme stood at the helm of a galaxy both united and divided. Her reforms, ending clone production, decentralizing power to systems, and negotiating peace with moderate separatists, won her allies, but her enemies grew bolder. Palpatine, still in hiding, was rumored to be gathering forces, perhaps even wielding a power beyond politics. Anakin's campaigns, while effective, left a trail of fear that tainted Padme's vision of hope. And within her own heart, doubt gnawed. One night, as Coruscant's skies burned with the light of 1,000 ships, Padme stood alone on her balcony, the weight of the crown, figurative but heavier than any metal, pressed against her. She had wanted to save the Republic, to restore its light. But the galaxy was vast, its currents unpredictable. Anakin joined her, his presence a quiet storm. "You're doing it," he said. "You're saving them." She turned to him, her eyes searching his. "At what cost, Anakin? I wanted to be a beacon, not a conqueror." He took her hand, his grip firm. "You're what they need, and I'll make sure no one takes that from you." Padme smiled, but it was a fragile thing. She had taken the throne to save the galaxy, but the path ahead was shrouded in shadow. Palpatine's plans, Anakin's darkness, the Jedi's defiance, all loomed like specters, and within her a new life stirred, a secret she had not yet shared with Anakin, their child, a spark of hope in a galaxy on the brink. As the stars burned above, Padmé Amidala, Empress of the galaxy, steeled herself for the battles to come. The crown was hers, but so was the storm. The galaxy churned under the weight of Empress Padmé Amidala's rule. A year had passed since she claimed the throne, her coronation a beacon of hope for some, and a spark of rebellion for others. Coruscant, the galactic capital, thrummed with uneasy energy, its spires gleaming by day, but its underbelly alive with whispers of dissent. Padme had vowed to restore the Republic's ideals, but the path to unity was fraught with thorns. The Clone Wars lingered, a smoldering fire refusing to die. The Jedi were fractured, torn between loyalty and suspicion, and Palpatine, the shadow she had cast out, was no longer a whisper, but a gathering storm. In the Imperial Palace, once the Chancellor's residence, now her seat of power, Padme stood before a holomap of the galaxy. Stars blinked, marking allied systems in blue, hostile ones in red, and neutral ones in a wavering yellow. Her gown, a deep crimson edged with gold, was both regal and practical, a symbol of her dual role as ruler and warrior. Beside her, Bail Organa, her chancellor, traced a finger along the outer rim. "The Separatists are regrouping here," Bail said, his voice steady but grave. "Dooku's forces have fortified Raxus and are rallying neutral systems. They're calling you a hypocrite, Padme, an empress who claims to champion democracy while wielding absolute power." Padme's jaw tightened. "They twist my words. I've called for a constitutional convention to restore the Senate's authority, but peace must come first, or there will be nothing left to govern." Bail nodded, but his eyes held a warning. "Peace at the cost of freedom is a dangerous bargain. The longer you hold the throne, the harder it will be to let it go." His words stung, echoing her own fears. Padme had never wanted to be Empress, but necessity had forged her crown. She turned to the holomap, her mind racing. The galaxy was a puzzle, and every piece she moved risked toppling another. Anakin Skywalker was her greatest strength and her deepest concern. He had become the fist of her empire, leading campaigns with a brilliance that bordered on obsession. His victories, over Grievous on Megiddo, against Dooku's fleets at Sereno, had bolstered Padme's legitimacy. But the cost was steep. Reports filtered back of entire separatist outposts reduced to ash, of prisoners executed without trial, of Jedi sidelined or ignored. Anakin's name inspired awe in some and terror in others. In their private chambers, Padme confronted him. The room was dim, lit only by the city's eternal glow. Anakin stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the light. His armor, scarred from battle, lay discarded on a chair, but the weight of the war clung to him. "You're going too far," Padme said, her voice firm but laced with worry. "The reports from Ryloth. Civilian casualties, Anakin. You promised me precision, not destruction." He turned, his eyes blazing. I'm winning your war, Padme. The Separatists don't negotiate with speeches. They respect strength. I'm giving you the galaxy you want. At what cost? She snapped. The people need to trust us, not fear us. You're making me look like a tyrant. Anakin stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You're not a tyrant. You're a savior. But you can't save them by playing soft. The galaxy is chaos. It needs order, and I'm giving it to you. Padme's heart ached. She saw the boy she loved beneath the warrior's mask, but the shadows in his eyes grew darker each day. She reached for his hand, her touch gentle but urgent. I need you, Anakin. But I need you to be the man I married, not a weapon. He softened, his fingers tightening around hers. I'm doing this for you. For us. For... His gaze dropped to her abdomen, where the swell of her pregnancy was just beginning to show. Padmé hadn't told him yet, but he had sensed it, through the Force, through their bond. The child was their secret, a fragile hope in a galaxy of strife. She placed his hand on her stomach, her voice a whisper. This is why we fight. For a future where our child can live in peace. But if we lose ourselves, what future will we give them? Anakin's expression wavered, torn between devotion and defiance. I'll protect you both, he vowed, no matter what. But as he left for another campaign, Padme felt a chill. His promise was a double-edged blade, and she feared where it would cut. The Jedi were another fracture in her empire. The schism sparked by Mace Windu's defiance had deepened. Windu and his faction, based on Kashyyyk, refused to recognize Padme's rule, calling it a betrayal of the Republic's ideals. They operated independently, striking at separatist targets, but ignoring Padme's orders. Their broadcasts, spread via pirate signals, accused her of usurping democracy and warned of a new tyranny. Obi-Wan Kenobi, ever the diplomat, tried to bridge the gap. He met Padme in a secure chamber beneath the palace, his robes dusty from a recent mission. Mace is stubborn, but he's not your enemy, Obi-Wan said. He fears what you could become. Give him a reason to trust you. Padme's eyes narrowed. I have offered peace, Obi-Wan. I've called for a convention to restore the Senate. What more does he want? Your crown, Obi-Wan said bluntly. He believes no one should hold such power, not even you. And what do you believe? She asked, her voice sharp. Obi-Wan hesitated, his gaze steady but troubled. I believe in you, Padme, but I also know power changes people. You're walking a dangerous path, and Anakin, He trailed off, the unspoken weight of his concern hanging between them. Padme's chest tightened. Anakin is loyal to me. He's fighting for the galaxy's future. Obi-Wan's expression softened, but his words were firm. Be careful, Padme. Loyalty can blind, and love can consume. The warning lingered as Obi-Wan left, his words a mirror to Yoda's caution a year ago. Padme resolved to mend the Jedi rift, but time was not on her side. The true threat emerged in the form of Palpatine. The former Chancellor, long thought to be in hiding, revealed himself in a chilling holonet broadcast. His face, gaunt and shadowed, filled screens across the galaxy. People of the Republic, he intoned, his voice smooth as silk and sharp as a vibroblade. You have been deceived. Padmé Amidala, your so-called Empress, is a traitor who stole your freedom under the guise of salvation. I, Darth Sidious, will liberate you from her tyranny. The name Darth Sidious sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Few knew the Sith Lord's true identity, but the revelation that Palpatine was a Sith shattered trust in the old Republic. Padmé's allies scrambled to counter the propaganda, but the damage was done. Systems wavered, and neutral worlds began to tilt toward Palpatine's promises of order. Worse, Sidious was not alone. He had rallied the Separatists under a new banner, merging Dooku's forces with his own. Grievous led brutal assaults on Padmé's outer territories, while Dooku's diplomacy swayed systems like Mandalore and Ryloth. Sidious's true power, however, lay in the Force. Reports surfaced of dark rituals on Mustafar, of clone troopers turning on their commanders, their minds twisted by an unseen hand. Padmé knew she faced a foe unlike any other. Sidious was no mere politician. He was a master of deception, a puppeteer who had orchestrated the clone wars from the shadows. To defeat him, she would need more than armies. She needed the Jedi, the clones, and Anakin's strength, but each was a thread in a tapestry fraying at the edges. The turning point came on Corellia, a key industrial world teetering on the edge of rebellion. Sidious's agents had infiltrated its shipyard, sowing discord among the workers. Padme, against Bael's advice, traveled to Corellia herself, determined to win the planet's loyalty. If I can't inspire trust, she told him, then my empire is already lost. Her speech in Corellia's central plaza was a masterstroke. Standing before a crowd of thousands, her pregnant form a symbol of hope, she spoke of unity, of a galaxy free from war and corruption. I am not your ruler, she declared, her voice carrying across the holonet. I am your servant fighting to rebuild what was broken. Join me, and together we will forge a future worthy of our children. The crowd roared, and Corellia pledged its shipyards to her cause. But as Padme departed, an assassin struck. A cloaked figure wielding a red lightsaber lunged from the shadows. Only Anakin's intervention saved her, his blue blade intercepting the attackers in a blaze of sparks. The assassin, a Dathomirian Night Brother, was killed, but not before whispering, Sidious sees all. The attack shook Padme. She had faced danger before, but this was personal. A message from Sidious that no one was beyond his reach. Anakin, enraged, vowed to hunt down the Sith Lord. He won't touch you again, he growled, his eyes burning with a fury that chilled her. Anakin, we need strategy, not vengeance, she said, gripping his arm. Sidious wants to divide us. We can't let him. But Anakin's rage was a fire she could not quench. He left for Mustafar, following rumors of Sidious's presence, taking a battalion of clones and leaving Padme to face the galaxy alone. In Anakin's absence, Padme leaned on her allies. Mon Mothma led diplomatic missions to sway neutral systems, while Bael oversaw the Constitutional Convention. The clones under Rex and Cody remained loyal, but Padme sensed their unease. The Jedi schism worsened, with Windu's faction launching unauthorized strikes that disrupted her plans. Then came the betrayal she hadn't foreseen. A group of senators, led by Orn Free Taa of Ryloth, defected to Sidious. They broadcast a manifesto, accusing Padme of tyranny and declaring their allegiance to the true Republic under Palpatine. The defection cost her key systems, and riots erupted on worlds like Cato Neimoidia and Malastare. That Padme's resolve hardened, she issued a decree. Any system aligning with Sidious would face economic sanctions and military consequences. It was a harsh move, one that alienated moderates. But she saw no choice. The galaxy was slipping from her grasp, and she would not let Sidious win. Obi-Wan, returning from a mission, confronted her. You're becoming what you feared, he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. This isn't the Padme I knew. I'm doing what I must, she replied, her voice steady but her heart breaking. If I falter, Sidious will destroy everything. Obi-Wan's gaze softened. You're not alone, Padme. Let us help you before it's too late. She wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. Anakin's mission to Mustafar was a disaster. Sidious had laid a trap, luring him into a confrontation with Dooku and a cadre of dark acolytes. The battle was brutal. Anakin's forces were decimated, and he barely escaped with his life. When he returned to Coruscant, he was a changed man. His scars were not just physical. The force around him felt heavy, tainted. Padme met him in their chambers, her heart racing. What happened? She asked, reaching for him. He pulled away, his voice raw. Sidious was there, not in person, but I felt him. He's stronger than we thought, Padme. He's playing us all. She saw the fear in his eyes, a rare crack in his armor. We'll stop him, she said, her voice firm. Together. But Anakin's gaze was distant. He offered me power, he admitted, to protect you, to save our child. I refused, but what if he's right? What if we can't win? Padme's blood ran cold. Sidious's influence was a poison, and it was seeping into Anakin's soul. She took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. We will win because we fight for something greater than power, for love, for hope, for our child. Don't let him twist you, Anakin. He nodded, but the doubt lingered. As the second year of her reign drew to a close, Padme stood on the brink of collapse. Sidious's forces were gaining ground, bolstered by defectors and dark sorcery. The Jedi schism threatened to erupt into open conflict. Anakin's loyalty wavered, pulled by Sidious's promises and his own fears. And within Padme, her child grew, a reminder of the future she fought for, and the stakes of failure. One night, as Coruscant's skies burned with the light of warships, Padme received an encrypted message. It was from an unknown source, but the voice was unmistakable. Palpatine. "Empress Amidala," he purred, his hologram flickering. "You wear your crown well, but it is a fragile thing. Join me, and together we can end this war. Refuse, and you will lose everything. Your throne, your husband, your child." The hologram faded, leaving Padme in darkness. Her hand rested on her stomach, feeling the faint kick of her child. Sidious's words were a blade, cutting at her resolve. But she was no longer the senator who hesitated, the queen who doubted. She was Empress, and she would fight. She summoned her allies, Bail, Mon Mothma, Obi-Wan, and Rex. "Sidious thinks he can break us," she said, her voice steel. "But we are the galaxy's heart. We will find him, and we will end him." As they planned their counter-strike, Padme glanced at Anakin standing at her side. His eyes were fixed on the horizon and a storm brewing within. She knew the final battle was coming, not just with Sidious, but for Anakin's soul. The galaxy held its breath, and the Empress prepared for war. The galaxy trembled on the edge of oblivion. 2 years into her reign, Empress Padmé Amidala stood as a beacon of hope and a target of hate. Her vision of a restored republic, a galaxy united, free from war and tyranny, had rallied worlds to her cause, but the cost was steep. The Clone Wars, though weakened, still burned. The Jedi Order, fractured by mistrust, teetered on the brink of collapse. Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord, once known as Palpatine, loomed like a specter, his dark influence spreading like a plague. And Anakin Skywalker, Padme's husband and sword, walked a razor's edge between love and darkness. In the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, Padme stood before a war council, her crimson gown a stark contrast to the sterile glow of the holomap. Her pregnancy was now unmistakable, a symbol of the future she fought for, and a vulnerability her enemies sought to exploit. Around her stood her most trusted allies, Bail Organa, her chancellor, Mon Mothma, her diplomat, Obi-Wan Kenobi, her reluctant Jedi ally, and Captain Rex, commander of her loyal clones. Anakin was absent, leading a desperate campaign in the Outer Rim, and his absence gnawed at her heart. "The Sith are moving," Obi-Wan said, his voice grim. He pointed to a cluster of red markers on the holomap. "Sidious has consolidated his forces on Biss, a fortress world in the deep core. Dooku and Grievous are with him, along with a fleet larger than we anticipated. He's drawing us in." Padme's eyes narrowed. "A trap." "Likely," Obi-Wan agreed, "but we can't ignore it. If we don't strike now, he'll overrun our defenses. The mid-rim is already wavering." Bail leaned forward, his expression troubled. "We are stretched thin, Padme. The Senate's convention is faltering. Too many systems are defecting to Sidious. If we lose this war, your empire collapses." Mon Mothma's voice was softer but no less urgent. "It's not just the war. The people are losing faith. They see an empress, not a savior. You must show them you're still their champion." Padme's hand rested on her stomach, feeling the faint stir of her child. She had never wanted the crown, but she wore it for them, for the galaxy, for her unborn child, for Anakin. "We end this," she said, her voice steel. "Sidious wants a final battle. We'll give it to him, but on our terms." As the council planned their assault on Biss, Padme's thoughts turned to Anakin. His last transmission had been curt, his voice strained. Sidious's influence was a poison in his veins, and she feared what she would find when they reunited. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance, but so did her family's. Anakin's campaign in the Outer Rim was a crucible. He had crushed separatist strongholds on Felucia and Salakami, but each victory came at a cost. His methods grew harsher. Villages burned, surrenders ignored. The Jedi who fought beside him like Ahsoka Tano watched with growing unease. Ahsoka, who had returned to the Order at Padme's request, tried to reach him. "Anakin, this isn't you," she said after a battle on Rishi, standing amid the wreckage of a droid factory. "You're fighting for Padme, but you're losing yourself." His eyes, shadowed and intense, met hers. "I'm doing what she needs, Ahsoka. The galaxy won't kneel to ideals. It kneels to strength." Ahsoka's voice softened. "She needs you, Anakin. Not as a weapon, but as her partner. Don't let Sidious twist you." The mention of Sidious ignited something in him, a flicker of doubt quickly buried. "I'll end this war," he said, turning away. "For her." But Sidious's voice haunted him. In dreams and meditations, the Sith Lord whispered promises of power, of a galaxy where Padme and their child would be safe. Anakin resisted, but the temptation grew, a crack in his soul, widening with each battle. The assault on Biss was the largest military operation in Padme's reign. Her fleet, bolstered by Corellian shipyards and Alderaanian volunteers, numbered thousands of ships. The Jedi, though divided, sent a contingent led by Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, while Mace Windu's faction remained aloof, striking at Sidious's flanks, but refusing to coordinate. The clones, under Rex and Cody, formed the backbone of the ground assault. Anakin, recalled from the Outer Rim, led the vanguard, his Star Destroyer cutting through the Deep Core's hyperspace lanes like a blade. Padmé insisted on joining the campaign, despite her allies' protests. "I won't lead from a throne while others die," she told Bail, her voice unyielding. She boarded the Resolute, a sleek Nubian cruiser, and took her place at the fleet's heart. Her presence was a calculated risk, a symbol to inspire, but a target for Sidious. As the fleet emerged above Biss, the sight was chilling. The planet was a dark jewel, its surface shrouded in storms, its orbit bristling with separatist dreadnoughts. Sidious's flagship, the Eclipse, loomed like a predator, its black hull absorbing light. The battle began in a blaze of turbolasers and starfighters, the void erupting into chaos. Anakin led the charge, his Jedi starfighter weaving through enemy lines. His skill was unmatched, but his recklessness alarmed Obi-Wan, who fought beside him. "Stay focused, Anakin," Obi-Wan urged over the comms. "This is Sidious's domain. He'll try to break you." "I'm not the one who will break," Anakin growled, diving toward the Eclipse. On the Resolute, Padme coordinated the fleet, her voice calm but commanding. She felt the weight of every loss, every ship destroyed, every life extinguished. Her child kicked within her, a reminder of why she fought. But as the battle raged, a transmission cut through the chaos. Sidious, his face filling the bridge's view screen. "Empress Amidala," he purred, his voice a venomous caress. "You've played your part well, but the game is mine. Surrender, and I may spare your child." Padme's blood ran cold, but her resolve held. "You'll fall, Sidious," she said, her voice steady. "The galaxy will never bow to you." His smile was a blade. "Then watch it burn." The transmission ended, and the battle intensified. Grievous's droid legions poured onto Biss's surface, clashing with Rex's clones. Dooku, wielding his crimson lightsaber, dueled Obi-Wan in the planet's shadowed canyons. And Anakin, boarding the Eclipse, hunted Sidious himself. The ground assault was brutal. Biss's terrain, craggy, laced with dark energy, seemed to fight against Padme's forces. The clones fought valiantly, but Sidious's acolytes, trained in the dark side, cut through their ranks. Padme, against Rex's protests, joined the fray, wielding a blaster with the precision of her Naboo training. Her presence rallied the troops, but it drew attention. A Night Brother assassin, like the one on Corellia, targeted her. His red lightsaber slashed through the air, but Ahsoka intervened, her twin blades a whirlwind. "Stay back, Your Majesty," Ahsoka shouted, dispatching the attacker. "I'm not helpless!" Padme snapped, firing at a droid advancing on their flank. Ahsoka grinned despite the chaos. "Never said you were, but Anakin would kill me if I let you get hurt." The mention of Anakin tightened Padme's chest. She hadn't seen him since the fleet launched, and his silence on the comms was ominous. She trusted his strength, but Sidious's influence was a shadow she couldn't shake. Aboard the Eclipse, Anakin faced his destiny. The ship's corridors were a labyrinth of darkness, the air heavy with the Force's malevolence. Sidious waited in the throne room, a cavernous chamber lined with obsidian. The Sith Lord stood alone, his hooded figure radiating power. "Skywalker," Sidious rasped, his yellow eyes gleaming. "You've come to me at last." Anakin's lightsaber ignited, its blue glow defiant. "This ends now, Sidious. You won't touch her." Sidious laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think you fight for her, but you fight for me. Every death, every victory has forged you into my weapon. Join me, and we will rule the galaxy. Together we will save her." Anakin's grip tightened, his mind a storm. Sidious's words echoed his fears. Padme's danger, their child's vulnerability. The Sith Lord's power was intoxicating, a promise of control in a chaotic universe. But Padme's face, her voice, her love, anchored him. "No!" Anakin said, his voice raw. "I choose her!" The duel was cataclysmic. Sidious unleashed torrents of force lightning, his lightsaber a blur of crimson. Anakin countered with raw power, his strikes fueled by love and rage. The throne room shuddered, consoles exploding, the air crackling with energy. Anakin was relentless, but Sidious was cunning, exploiting every doubt, every flicker of fear. "You cannot win," Sidious taunted. "She will die, and you will break." Anakin roared, his blade slashing through Sidious's defenses. The Sith Lord staggered, but his smile never wavered. "You are mine," he whispered, and vanished into a cloud of shadow. Anakin stood panting, the room silent. Sidious was gone, but not defeated. On Biss's surface, the tide turned. Obi-Wan defeated Dooku, severing the Count's hand and forcing his surrender. Rex's clones overwhelmed Grievous's droids, though the cyborg general escaped. Padmé's forces secured key strongholds, and the fleet above crippled the Eclipse. But victory felt hollow. Sidious's presence lingered, a wound in the Force. Padmé reunited with Anakin in the ruins of a Sith temple, their embrace fierce but fleeting. His eyes were haunted, his voice strained. "He's not dead," Anakin said. "I fought him, but he slipped away." Padmé's heart sank, but she gripped his hand. "We'll find him, together." Obi-Wan approached, his expression grave. "Sidious is weakened, but he'll strike again. We need the Jedi united, Padmé. Mace Windu must be brought into the fold." She nodded, resolve hardening. "I'll go to Kashyyyk. If I can convince him, the galaxy will see we're united." Anakin's jaw tightened. "It's too dangerous. He gestured to her stomach, his voice breaking. "I have to," she said softly. "For us. For our child." The journey to Kashyyyk was a gamble. Mace Windu's faction had grown, bolstered by Jedi disillusioned with Padmé's rule. She arrived with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, her cruiser landing in a Wookiee village perched among towering trees. Windu met them, his presence imposing, his lightsaber unlit but ready. "You've come to justify your empire," Windu said, his voice cold. "Speak." Padme faced him, her gaze unflinching. "I took the throne to save the Republic, not to rule it. Sidious is the enemy, not me. Join us and we'll end this war. Together." As Windu's eyes narrowed. "You wield absolute power. How do I know you'll relinquish it?" "Because I fight for the same ideals you do," she said. "Freedom, justice, peace. My child will inherit a galaxy, not a throne." Her words and the visible truth of her pregnancy softened the air. The Wookiees, led by Chewbacca, roared their support, their loyalty to Padmé unwavering. Windu hesitated, then lowered his guard. "For now, we fight as one," he said. "But I'll be watching, Empress." It was a fragile truce, but it was enough. The galaxy rallied. Padmé's victory on Biss and her alliance with Windu restored faith in her cause. The Constitutional Convention gained momentum, with systems drafting a new Republic charter. The Separatists, leaderless without Dooku, began to fracture, but Sidious was not finished. His final gambit came on Naboo, Padmé's homeworld. A massive Sith fleet hidden in the deep core struck without warning. Theed the capital burned his droid armies and dark acolytes descended. Sidious himself led the assault, his presence a black hole in the Force. Padmé, now in her final weeks of pregnancy, returned to defend her people. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Windu, and Ahsoka fought beside her, their forces bolstered by Wookiee warriors and clone legions. The Battle of Theed was a clash of titans. Lightsabers flashed, cannons roared, and the Force itself seemed to scream. Sidious confronted Padmé in the royal palace, his yellow eyes gleaming. "You've lost, Amidala," he hissed. "Your empire, your love, your child, all will fall." Anakin lunged, but Sidious repelled him with a blast of lightning. Obi-Wan and Windu joined the fight, their blades a storm, but Sidious was a force of nature, his power amplified by Biss's dark rituals. Padmé, unarmed but unbroken, faced him. "You're wrong," she said, her voice ringing. "The galaxy is stronger than your hate. We fight for each other, not for power." Her words, broadcast across the holonet by Mon Mothma's team, ignited the galaxy. Systems rose up, the civilians joined the fight, and even neutral worlds sent aid. Sidious faltered, his focus broken. Anakin, fueled by love, struck the final blow, his lightsaber piercing Sidious's heart. The Sith Lord collapsed, his body dissolving into shadow. The battle ended, but the war was won. In the aftermath, Padme stood on the palace balcony, Theed's scars a testament to their victory. Anakin was at her side, his darkness purged by the choice to save her. The Jedi, united under Obi-Wan and Windu, pledged to rebuild. The clones led by Rex were granted citizenship, their service honored. Padmé addressed the galaxy one final time as Empress. "The Sith are defeated," she said, her voice steady. "The Republic will rise again, not under a crown, but under the will of its people. I step down, trusting you to forge our future." The galaxy cheered, but Padmé's heart was with her family. In a quiet villa by Lake Vericano, she gave birth to twins, Luke and Leia. Anakin, his scars a map of their journey, held them with a tenderness that erased his shadows. As the twins slept, Padmé and Anakin stood by the lake, the stars reflecting on the water. "We did it," she whispered, leaning into him. "We did," he said, his voice soft. "For them." The galaxy was not perfect, scars remained, and the new Republic would face its own trials. But Padmé had kept her promise to save, not to rule. Her legacy was not an empire, but a light that would guide the stars for generations. And in the Force, so the balance was restored, carried by the love of a family that had defied the dark. Years later, Luke and Leia, trained as Jedi, stood on Naboo, their parents' story a legend. The Republic thrived, its Senate a tapestry of voices. Anakin, graying but at peace, taught younglings the ways of the Force. Padmé, a senator once more, worked to ensure the galaxy's unity. As the twins looked to the stars, they felt their parents' love, a force stronger than any Sith. The galaxy spun on, and the light of legacy endured.